Okay, I think we can start. Good afternoon, Sagwadi.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. Can you hear me properly?
Yes, we can hear you and we can see you. All right. Welcome again, colleagues. Thank you to those of you who join us every single month for these lectures. Today's a very exciting lecture because we've got our fellow member and a friend
Yay.
who will be giving us this lecture. For those who do not know her, our guest lecturer today is Dr. Sagwadi Mabunda, who is a senior lecturer at the University of the Western Cape. And she's also an advocate with us here at PABASA. She's also an accredited mediator and a researcher. And she's got a very good academic background. She's got an LLB from the University of Witwatersrand, and an LLM from the University of the Western Cape. And then she's a doctor and she's got a PhD. And her research was the South African legislative response to cyber crimes. She's a cybercrime expert, an economic crimes expert, and she's got a whole lot of awards under her belt. She's been a constitutional court clerk, a cyber bricks researcher, a Million Guardian Young 200 South African Award. She's an NRF Skills Scholarship holder, the University of Berlin and University of Western Cape Research Mobility, and I don't know what is DAAD scholarship holder at the South African German Center for Transnational Criminal Justice 2015. So that is the introduction. Very impressive for somebody your age. Thank
Thank
you
you.
very much, Dr. Mabunda, for joining us and coming to share with us. The topic is a case for cyber capable guardian. Can't wait to hear more about this unfamiliar territory. Over to you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Advocate Mokola. Thank you for the invitation. I'm deeply honored to be invited here, and it's really great to be back at PABASA. So as Tulelo has already described, I'm a senior lecturer at the University of Western Cape. I'm also a member of PABASA practicing out of Cape Town. And yeah, so this is part of my research. My specialization is in cybercrime and anti-money laundering, but I'm mainly focused on cybercrime. And the presentation that I'm giving for today is part of a paper that I've written, which will be published at the end of this year. So when that becomes available, I am happy to share once that is published. So this is actually the first time that I am discussing the arguments that I've made in that paper in a public lecture. So I'm quite honored for this platform, and I hope there will be space for discussion. So we'll get started. All right, so there we go. So as we know, we are living in a very digitally hyper-connected society, right? Almost every single thing is connected to the internet in one way or the other, right? Your fridge, your TV, your car, your phone, your smartwatches, almost everything is connected to the internet. It was estimated that in 2011, there were about 2.3 billion people that had access to the internet, which is 1/3 of the world's population at that time. By 2021, only 10 years later, that number had risen to 4.13 billion people that are connected to the internet. What this means, of course, is that there is a lot of space for cyber crimes to be committed, and there's a lot of people that can be victimized by cyber criminals, right? So that is the research that I am looking at. What kinds of things can we do to combat cybercrime? So when you think about cybercrime, what immediately comes to mind when you hear the word cybercrime, right? A lot of people don't have heard of the word, but they wouldn't necessarily know how to define it, or they wouldn't necessarily know what kinds of things fit into what you would refer to as cybercrime, right? So you would think of something like hacking, right? You would think about fraud. You think about cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin, right? Those are already quite popular. You think about artificial intelligence, right? That's part of the thing that is being discussed more concertedly right now. And one of the issues that we have with cybercrime is that the problems that are embedded in cybercrime is at least twofold. The first is that the proliferation of cybercrime globally, not just in South Africa, but globally, is currently outstripping the pace at which governments are able to respond. A lot of countries all over the world have legislation that deals with cybercrime, but they usually wouldn't have the infrastructure that is necessary to deal with cybercrime, right? So that's the first part. The second part is that by the time they are able to enact legislation, cyber criminals have already moved on to the next thing, right? Before we would talk about, someone just sending you a spam email, but now they're able to do that in a much larger scale, right? That we're not able to attend to that quite quickly enough. Whereas cyber criminals, that's their job, right? They're able to invent new things. They're able to find new ways. They don't have the constraints that governments would have because they have to do things by the book, right? So that makes cybercrime quite difficult to tackle generally, right? Some common terms that you would have come across when you're thinking about cybercrime, or even just generally, terms such as malware, terms such as hacking, a DDoS attack probably not as common, and then things like spamming and phishing, that is quite common, right? So I'll just describe them very briefly. I won't go into any detail onto what they are, but just in order to give you a little bit of an understanding of what is it that we're dealing with. So malware usually would just very basically would be any malicious software that is used to commit a cybercrime. So you'd be referring to viruses, to worms, to Trojans, spyware, right? Anything that we use to commit a crime. There are different ways that you can commit a crime. Generally, with the kind of crimes that I'm discussing in today's lecture, which are termed type 1 cybercrimes, there's no need to get into that. But the kind of crimes that I'm dealing with today are ones that usually use malware, right? An example of a cybercrime that would use a lot of malware would be hacking or a denial of service attack. So I will discuss maybe the denial of service attack, which is not as common, but it is something that is quite devastating. So if you have hacktivists, for example, hackers that are activists, or someone who is a malicious actor that wants to get something out of a company, what they would do is that they would find a way to try and deny the company's clients from gaining their services. So that's why it's called a denial of service. So what they would do, for instance, is that if you are trying to log, let's say there's an attack against SARS, it's tax season, right? There's an attack against SARS. What they would do is that they would send hundreds and millions of requests to the SARS website so as to overwhelm the website, and that when you are a legitimate user, you want to file your taxes, you're not able to access that because someone has accumulated some bots somewhere and has sent a lot of requests to the site, and that basically cripples the website, right? That is like a common thing that they would do. They would then probably ask for a ransom that they would use. Another common one that you would be aware of is ransomware, where they let you download or make you download some kind of malware, maybe a worm or virus, and then it locks your computer and you're not able to use it until you have paid them some kind of ransom, either through Bitcoin usually, right? So these are the kinds of things that you would expect to encounter, but we would move on from that. In us understanding cybercrime, we know that it is quite difficult to have a single definition of what cybercrime is. And this is done quite intentionally because of the way that technology advances. it would be unwise to have a single definition that captures everything, because by the time you have created that definition, the technology has advanced so much that the definition becomes obsolete. Then you would need to keep updating that definition over and over again. So what they've done is they have elected to have it's sort of like a description of elements of activities that would constitute cybercrime. So the overarching convention that deals with cybercrime internationally would be the Council of Europe Convention on Cybercrime, and it was signed in Budapest, so it is Budapest, Hungary, so it is referred to as the Budapest Convention. And that convention does not give a single definition, but it does say that cybercrime involves any action which is directed against the confidentiality, the integrity, and the availability of computer systems, networks, and computer data, as well as the misuse of such systems, networks, or data, right? So the important thing that you would note from that description is that any action that attacks or is directed against the confidentiality, the integrity, or the availability of computer systems can be classified as a cybercrime. This is what we refer to as the CIA triad, right? So most legislations or most member countries, when enacting their own legislation, would ensure that whether they're deciding to have a single definition for cybercrime or describing it in the way that the convention has done, would make sure that it aligns with that core idea of an attack against the confidentiality, the integrity, or the availability. I discussed just before about the denial of service attack. The denial of service attack is trying to prevent the SARS website from being available. So it's an attack against the availability of the website and whatever services are there, right? So there's different ways that a person can attack. It's if you are attacking confidentiality, integrity, and availability, then you're likely going to be covered under the definition of cybercrime, right? In South Africa, our overarching act is the Cybercrimes Act, which was enacted in 2022, came into force then, 2020. So Cybercrimes Act 19 of 2020. And that is the act that deals with cybercrime. It aligns quite closely with the Budapest Convention, and it captures the essence of what the convention wants it to say. South Africa is a signatory to the convention, but it hasn't ratified it as far as I understand. So what we would see from the Cybercrimes Act is that it too doesn't give a single definition, but it describes certain offenses which would be counted as cybercrimes and which can be prosecuted under the act. So for instance, unlawful access, unlawful interception of data, unlawful acts in respect of software or hardware tools, right? Those would fall into the ambit of hacking offenses, right? If you wanted to class them together. Then there's other offenses such as cyber fraud. I have argued elsewhere that an offense such as cyber fraud should not be contained in the Cybercrimes Act because it doesn't necessarily meet the requirements of being an attack against the CIA triad. So that's just like an argument that I've made elsewhere. But then there's other, it's what's included there, which is quite conventional for a lot of legislation around the world, right? So what I've done now is basically given a description of what cybercrime is. Very briefly, very surface level. It goes much deeper than this, but because of time, we can't get into the depths of it. And I have shown what the international perspective is and what the domestic perspective is, just as an introduction. What I want to discuss in today's lecture is what can we do to combat cybercrime? And that needs us to have an understanding of some criminological theories, right? So this is a typical crime scene. I wanted to use this one specifically because this is like a depiction of the scene in Batman, where Bruce Wayne's parents were killed at the end of a show that they had visited, or after a show that they had visited. And this is, it sort of like encapsulates what would be the necessary elements, which would have a successful commission of a crime, right? So we have Felsen and Cohen and Felsen, excuse me. Cohen and Felsen are criminologists that have come up with a theory referred to as the routine activities theory. In the routine activities theory, they argue that in order for you to have a successful commission of a crime, you need at least three things. These are the three essential elements to the successful commission of a crime. The first is that you need a motivated offender. The second is that you need a suitable target. And the third is that you need a capable guardian. Today's lecture will be, or today's talk will be looking more closely at the capable guardian. I have argued for the suitable target in a different paper, right? So for today, we'll be dealing with a capable guardian. But in order for us to get to the capable guardian, it is necessary to have a bit of a discussion on the other constitutive elements, right? So in order for you to have a successful commission of a crime, these three things need to converge in space and time: the motivated offender, a suitable target, and an absent capable guardian, right? So the first person or the first element that we would be looking at would be the motivated offender. The motivated offender is anyone who is able to or is motivated and has the capacity to commit an offense, right? Whether or not a target is suitable, we'll discuss a suitable target shortly. Whether or not a target is suitable will depend on the desires of the motivated offender, right? So you may have, if you look at, for instance, some cars parked outside of a mall, there may be like a row of 10 cars, but then only the BMW gets stolen by the hijackers or by the thieves. And that's because to that thief, the target that they were looking for was a BMW, which made that BMW a suitable target, right? So whether or not a target is suitable will depend on what the motivated offender believes is suitable, right? This then also means that the profile that we have for a motivated offender will differ depending on what their skills are. So if you look at a thief and you look at a hacker, both of them may be trying to steal money, steal property, property, but their skills will be different because they're operating in different arenas, right? So the profile, again, is quite specific to whom the motivated offender is. So the motivated offender was determined to be a key aspect of the routine activities theory. The second constitutive element of the routine activities theory is the suitable target. So again, in order to have a successful commission of a crime, you need to have a motivated offender, which we've discussed, and you need to have a suitable target. The first part, we've said that the suitability of a target is dependent on the offender. And in order to determine the suitability of a target, you would look at these four core things. The first would be the value, how valuable that thing is. It may be valuable to me, it may be valuable to one offender and not valuable to another. You would then look at the inertia, meaning how difficult is it to move that thing, or how much resistance will you get? If you try to say you are trying to victimize a person, it would be easier to kidnap a 5-year-old child than it would be to kidnap a 30-year-old UFC fighter, right? So we're looking at the resistance. How difficult would it be in order to commit that offense against that person? Then the visibility, also that it is something that can be found easily. If a person is walking around with all the jewelry on them, it makes them a much more suitable target than someone else who is a little bit more conservative, right? And this is not to speak about victim blaming, but it's just a matter of everything that we're looking at in terms of the routines activities theory has to be from the perspective of the motivated offender. So we're not concerned about anyone else. We're concerned with what does the motivated offender need to be present in order for him to, or him or her or it to perpetrate whatever offense it needs to perpetrate. And the last would be accessibility. How accessible is the thing that we're looking at? A house in a cul-de-sac, for instance, is a lot more difficult to break into because there are fewer options to get away. A house that has burglar bars, a vicious dog, security around makes it more inaccessible to a motivated offender compared to somewhere else, and therefore that wouldn't be a suitable target, right? So it's always about the perspective of the motivated offender. And the third part that we would refer to is the capable guardian. In this instance, because of, for purposes of my discussion, I'm referring to a human capable guardian. Cohen and Felsen just referred to a capable guardian because this was not in the context of cybercrime, but in order to distinguish what I'm terming the cyber capable guardian, I have to discuss the human capable guardian. The capable guardian is anyone whose presence, anyone in whose presence a crime will not be committed, or anyone in whose absence a crime will likely be committed, right? So a capable guardian is not necessarily the police. The police can be a capable guardian, but a capable guardian can be anyone. So an old lady sitting in her house in the afternoon by, having some tea in the porch or something is a capable guardian for her apartment, because the likelihood that her house will be broken into with her just sitting there is a little bit lower because she is a guardian to that. So one does not have to be intentionally a capable guardian, and nor do they have to be an official to be a capable guardian. Two people walking together in the street are capable guardians to each other, right? Because in their presence, one person would not be victimized, as opposed to one person walking down the street. In that instance, that one person can be victimized because a capable guardian is absent, right? So again, in order to have a successful commission of a crime, you need a motivated offender, you need a suitable target, and you need a capable guardian. When Felsen and Cohen were discussing, the routine activities theory, Felsen went on to write even further after the seminal paper, and he sort of expanded the definition of the routine activities theory, right? And added on other elements that would be applicable. That sort of gave an indication that the routine activities theory can be applied as one of the most widely applied theory in criminology. And a lot of people have tried to use it in a lot of different ways. There is one gentleman, one academic called Chu, and he developed the cyber routine activities theory. So what Felsen did by expanding it sort of gave permission to everyone else engaging with the routine activities theory to expand it as the need arises. I then took that opportunity because why not? And I wanted to discuss what a cyber capable guardian would be. So this is where we are, the cyber capable guardian. Generally, despite the many developments that we've had regarding the capable guardian over the years, one of the suitable target and the motivated offender are more researched than the capable guardian. And there tends to be a reluctance to develop the capable guardian as robustly. One of the things that people argue for is what they refer to as target hardening. Target hardening meaning the suitable guardian, so the suitable target must just make themselves a lot more difficult to victimize. So if you are you live in your house, then you must have, burglar doors and a vicious dog and security company, and that makes you a much more difficult target. That's we refer to that as target hardening. In computers, normally, if you have a antivirus on your computer, or you would make yourself a harder target by having more complicated passwords, for instance. So the move is to promote target hardening, but that is not adequate because by definition, a motivated offender is motivated and will find a way to get past all of those measures to be hardened. So that means, and what I've argued is that we need to make sure that the capable guardian is equipped as far as they can be. And if we're dealing with cyber crimes, then we need to have a a capable guardian that is able to operate in a way that a human capable guardian wouldn't be able to. And for that, the cyber capable guardian, I argue should be something that is created through artificial intelligence, right? And I know everyone's like rolling their eyes because artificial intelligence is like the answer to every life's problem. But in this instance, I think the argument for artificial intelligence as the cyber capable guardian is one that stands and holds water. I've mentioned that there are at least two types of cybercrimes. There's type 1 cybercrimes and type 2 cybercrimes. Type 1 cybercrimes are more technical in nature. They would use the malware, they would use all the technology that type 2 cybercrimes would. And so type 2 cybercrimes would include something like cyberbullying, where you're not using any technology. You may use a platform like social media, but you're not actually using any technical means to victimize a target. But when you're looking at type 1 cybercrimes, they are more technical in nature, and a lot of their activities would occur in cyberspace, so they wouldn't play out in the real world, right? As loosely as we can put that. So in order for us to be able to find the person who has launched a denial of service or distributed denial of service attack, you would need to have something that is able to transcend borders. A human capable guardian will not be able to do that. A human capable guardian will not be able to watch every single website on the internet to see whether or not there is an unexplainable volume of requests coming into a particular website at any given time. They would not be able to find the different servers that are being used to launch this attack. So you would need to have something that is able to operate in cyberspace, but not only should it be able to operate in cyberspace, it also needs to be able to adapt to the environment, right? So the reason I'm advocating for the use of artificial intelligence is that it needs to have a kind of intuition or a kind of intelligence that a human being would have. So they would know how to investigate, like a police officer would know how to investigate, but still be able to have those technical capabilities of a machine, right? So the proposed cyber capable guardian ought to be a machine based on the technology in order for it to be effective, right? So the part of artificial intelligence that would create the or upon which the cyber capable guardian would be based would be using machine learning. Machine learning is a field of knowledge which tends to attempt to ask the question, how can we build a computer system that automatically improves with experience, right? And with that, what are the fundamental laws that govern that learning process, right? So it needs to be something that can learn through some fundamental laws. It needs to be able to improve with what it learns, right? So it means it needs to be able to operate at a level that a human being cannot operate on, as I've already stated, right? So a lot of the areas that artificial machine learning has been used and when it comes to learning tasks such as data mining, autonomous discovery, database updating, programming, for instance, right? So that is what the cyber capable guardian is. So that we would then create this machine, right? And have it operate as our key investigative tool as a start, right? Now that sounds like a very lofty idea that is just like hanging out in the sky without any basis. Where would we have this machine? How would it work? Who would be in charge of it? And in order for us to look at that, we would refer to what the Budapest Convention has termed the 24/7 network, right? So Article 35 of the Budapest Convention requires that every state party that is a member to the convention must designate a point of contact, which must be available 24 hours a day and 7 days a week, in order to ensure that there's immediate assistance that is available for the purpose of investigation or criminal proceedings relating to cybercrime. Right. So the 24/7 network or the designated point of contact would be where we would house the cyber capable guardian. In the South African context, Section 52 of the Cyber Crimes Act makes provision for the designated point of contact. The designated point of contact of the DPOC is the responsibility of the South African National Police Commissioner, and the police commissioner is responsible for the administration and the functioning of the DPOC. The services that I said that the DPOC should can do or provide include technical advice and any assistance which relates to cybercrime and relates to what the Act provides for. So anything that is provided for in Chapter 4 of the Act, Chapter 4 contains the powers to investigate, the powers to search and access or seize, right? And Chapter 5 of the Act, which is relating to mutual assistance. Say you found the person who committed the offense and a member party or member state wants to get some of the information that you have. That's where we have provisions for mutual assistance. So that's what the Section 52 of the Cyber Crimes Act provides for. And then it also says that the designated point of contact must also provide legal assistance and the identification and location of an article. So not only is the DPOC running 24/7 as the 24/7 network, not only does it do investigations, not only does it have technical expertise, it must also provide legal assistance, right? Yeah, it must also provide legal assistance. The Act also says that the NDPP must avail members of the National Prosecuting Authority to provide that legal assistance, right, with a view of making it as effective as possible. It then further says that each member of the NPA who is provided to the DPOC to assist must have particular knowledge and skills in respect of the matters that are being dealt with. This means that it's not, you don't just need capacity as a prosecutor, what you would normally do if you're prosecuting a murder or a robbery in court. You would need to have particular skills and understanding of cyber crimes, probably even at a near technical level, in order for you to provide the technical or the legal assistance that is necessary for you to be able to assist the DPOC, right? So in this picture that I have, it's sort of like a visualization of a prosecutor on one side, a police officer on the other side, and the third party, which is not clearly mentioned in the Act, would be our computer scientists or software engineers or IT specialists. There are a lot of things that I can argue for the cyber capable guardian. But as a lawyer, I'm quite limited when it comes to the technical knowledge, right? I can explain to you what the distributed denial of service attack is, but at a very high level, lawyery level, in order for me to be able to understand and explain that to a judge, I need to have someone who is present during that investigative process who is able to explain that at a technical level, to explain what an IP, what a server is, what a bot is, what a botnet is, right? So it is not enough to just have police officers. It is not enough to just have the prosecution years operating in the same space. Then, yeah. So one of the things that makes it even more important to have all three of them operate is that this is meant to run as a 24/7 network. So we cannot have a situation where one party or one entity sitting in a different location, or the software developer or whoever the IT specialist is looking at an attack, and then there's a time difference between them taking the information to the police to investigate, and then there's a time difference between like a warrant or whatever. Everything that is happening in cyberspace happens at lightning speed. Remember, we're dealing with computers, and computers are faster than we are, right? Computers don't need to sleep or eat. So those at the same place at the same time in order to function effectively. So the argument that I'm making is, or the additional argument that I'm making, is that the DPOC needs to be incorporated as a independent or semi-independent entity, and it should not be South African Police Services, right? So currently, the Act says that the DPOC needs to be located in the South African Police Services, and I'm arguing that we have the State Information Technology Agency, which runs independently, right? Sort of runs independently as a private company. And I'm arguing that the DPOC should be incorporated as a private company, then it can have these three elements or these entities operating within that company, right? There are, of course, some bits that I can describe for today. Is the first benefit of incorporating it as a private entity is that any money that the DPOC needs to in order to run from the Minister of Finance directly, in the same way the SETA is. So any funding that they would need from the government would be from the Minister of Finance. I should just clarify that when I say it's a completely private company, right? But you know, public-private kind of idea. So any money that would be sought would be from the Minister of Finance directly. When it gets established, it's not fully running. When it runs, it would need to be allocated a budget from the budget that is allocated to the SAPs generally. And we already know in South Africa challenge. So it means that the National Police Commissioner would have to allocate money for investigating murders and drugs and gangs and trafficking, and then also have to allocate cyber crime in there to fund the DPOC. That would be very difficult. The police are already underfunded, and it would make cybercrime fall on the back foot. I would argue that cyber crimes is quite urgent because the money that is lost from cyber attacks is quite substantial, right? So yeah, the DPOC would then find the second benefit of incorporating it as a private entity is that it would not be stifled by government bureaucracy, right? It would still have some oversight, but it would have the freedom to, so it would be able to enter into private contracts. It would be able to find ways to generate income on top of the funding that it would get from the Minister finance, and it would be able to decide, but not stifled by the bureaucracies that we have to deal with from getting funding from the government. The third benefit, which is similar to the second, but when incorporating it as a private entity, like I've said, is not to make it completely 100% private, but it would still have the government oversight that it needs to have. Because at the end of the day, the combating of crime, and so the oversight, it would still have some oversight from the NPA, it would still have some oversight from SAPS, excuse me, it would still have some oversight from the general government structures that exist, more freedom. And then the fourth benefit that I've identified is that when the cyber capable guardian is created, it would also the cyber capable guardian with the sole purpose of combating cybercrime, but tailored to the context of South Africa, right? So we may have crimes that are perpetrated more commonly in South Africa, whereas other countries may not experience it. So we may not experience denial of service attacks and experience other attacks more often. So when it's created, it will look at the context of South Africa, and it will be created with that mandate directly from its inception, right? So they will look at the needs of the country, would be able to invest as it wishes in research and development in the same way that, with these huge companies such as Google and in research and development. And because it is sort of divorced from government bureaucracy, it can generate income and take it. So to bring it all together, the argument that I'm making is that in order for us to successfully combat cybercrime, we need to create a God that transcends a human being, so made in terms of artificial intelligence, through machine learning, for instance, and that cyber capable guardian, designated point of contact as provided for in the Act, but the designated point of contact should be removed from the purview of the SAPS and in order for it to enjoy the benefits that I've outlined. And that's the crux of the argument that I'm making. As I've said, this is part of for it to be published, and so that article obviously have further details that I'm not able to expand on now in this discussion. So thank you. You will note some of the pictures that I have in my presentation. I generated them using AI through Copilot. This is my favorite, fighting all the robots that are coming. Thank you very much. Thank you for your attention. I'll take some questions.
Thank you. I want to see if there are any questions.
Stop share.
I just see Pelos clapping her hands. Colleagues, are there any questions that you have, Bunda?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Hi. Afternoon.
Yes, we are speaking to Emmanuel Howe. Thank you so much. Thank you, Doc, for this interesting presentation. I have a question regarding the DPOC.
Mm-hmm.
How is it different, or is it an extension of the Computer Incident Response Team, the CIRT? Is it similar to that. That's my first question. Thank you, Doc.
Okay. Do you have a second question?
The second question, I think it's around the cyber capable guardian. To say to build it or to formulate it. So I think just a mere question, how easy is it to build it? Because already we have the capable guardian, the original ones, as but now for the second one, what needs to be done for that transformation from the physical capable guardian to the cyber capable guardian? Thanks, Doc.
Just so I don't forget. So the so the DPOC would be like the overarching body as it stands in the Act right now. So incident responses would come under the DPOC. So it's like the overarching, everything that happens relating to any cyber attack or cyber crime would come under. And then to the question of how easy is it to build, I mean, that's a very brilliant question. And the honest answer is I have no idea. And the reason I don't know, and I'm okay to, I don't have the knowledge or the skills to know how to actually build artificial intelligence. And that is why the argument that I'm making is that although the DPOC integration, it needs to ensure that it's not just between the police and the NPA. It needs to bring in our technical experts, the engineers, and those would be the ones to say possible. But we've seen from the development of artificial intelligence the kinds of things that can be done. I was at a conference last week, the Research ICT Africa conference on AI, using things, research on AI, and the possibilities are just like endless. So we need to invest in that. We need to have a body that has that autonomy to say, I want to hire this person and bring them together, have the police in the room as well that says, no, this will not work for police investigation. Have the prosecutor that says, no, but you need to be able to obtain this information in a certain way, rules of evidence. All of those people need to be present at the same time having these discussions. It can't be one person creating some work, right? So part of the research that I'm doing, a research project that I'm embarking on now, is actually trying to figure out, getting in contact with people from the technical side, the people that have the skills, this actually work practically. Right now, it's just a theory, and I'm putting it out there to see how it can work. But yeah, thank you for the question.
Okay.
Sorry.
I don't want to make it a dialogue, but just one more question. I think I now understand. I'm happy that your answer was you don't know, because at the moment they actually don't know. But what you've just mentioned, that we really need to be proactive in fighting cybercrime. You mentioned that a crime will happen, then by the time you're looking for to make it worse, So and you mentioned that a capable guardian is anything or a person that discourages crime, especially cybercrime, from happening, which is the alarm systems, the barriers. It's just a matter of converting them into the cyber aspect. So in order for that to happen, I strongly believe that we need to, as you've mentioned, that you need all these people to work together. The technical people, the academicians, the police. Once they work together, that cyber capable guidance.
Okay, that's precisely what this argument is, right? And we need to go further than target hardening. So we can't just tell everyone, just change your password every 6 months. People are changing their passwords further than just saying protect yourself. The role of the state is to protect its citizens. So it needs to do something about that. But absolutely, that is exactly where we are. Yeah, thank you.
From Nomsa.
Hi, Dr. Advocate Mabunda. So
Hi.
refreshing to see conversation. And I just have a question on whether there is any civil litigation in relation to cyber mishaps. So I would understand cybercrime as the word says, or the name says. It brings the police, the prosecution, and so on and on. However, I'd like to think maybe, I don't know, out of ignorance, but I'd like to think that all these programs or the softwares and things like that, they are founded or developed by human beings or corporates or whatever, come up with a system. And I don't know whether there could be some civil litigation side of it to try and figure out who owns the cyber or these malwares and whatnot. I'm just wondering around that issue, whether there is anything, in other words, to target offender, but the bigger, yeah, I think you.
Yes, I do get the question. This is a very interesting question. So a lot of the times there would be different. When it comes to malware specific to committing cyber offenses, cyber crimes, the cyber criminal will be creating that for that intention, right? So you would then also instances where you have maybe like type 2 cyber crimes, if you have cyberbullying, that occurs, or attempts to hold maybe Meta accountable, but that becomes very difficult because then it's a matter of are they responsible for what their users are doing? Should they be, who should be held accountable? So that is actually like a debate that carries on. The one area that I've seen it carry on, let me just make a note. Carrying on is with artificial intelligence, right? So they look at if a company creates a self-driving car, and the self-driving car and hits a pedestrian and kills a pedestrian, who is responsible? The person who was in the car when the car was self-driving, or is it the systems created the self-driving car? And that is like, it has a lot of like ethical questions that we have there of like, ultimately who is responsible. Arguments have been made that we should hold the liable, either criminally or civilly. Typically would be civilly, because they allowed that machine out in the wild, right? So perhaps it can be extrapolated from that perspective, something with the best of intentions, but that thing does not have sufficient safeguards to protect people, because now people with bad intentions are using it to victimize people to some extent. But that's a debate that's ongoing. The other part that I've encountered as well is there's one argument that was made for some kind of insurance from a government level to say if a private company, for instance, has all the things that it needs to do, and it can apply for cyber insurance for any kind of attacks side of things. But yeah, that's not my expertise, so I'm sort of limited in that regard. But yeah, it's definitely an interesting question worth exploring. Thank you for the question.
Are you covered, Nomsa?
Yes, thank you. No, I'm sorted. I think with time it will be developed further.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. I don't see any other questions. Maybe I could ask mine.
Sure.
I don't even know if it's how to phrase it, but cyber hackers, so criminals. I've never really looked into our Cyber Crimes Act, but does that make provision for cross-border type of scenarios? Those perpetrators who would be sitting elsewhere in America, for instance, and where does the crime if I'm in South Africa, group of hackers are sitting somewhere in India using a software made in America. I'm just complicating the but I'm always thinking that's how it works.
Yes.
Are we protected in South Africa, or is it something that our law that how do I, if I know for a fact that it's somebody in India who is the criminal, am I protected using our
Right, that's a great question. And it then goes back to the argument made for the DPOC, right? So at the taking cybercrime is and the nitty-gritty technical stuff that a lot of us don't understand, even me at some stages, the act is still part of our criminal law. It's still part of, so you would then understand the crime that has been committed. You would seek to find to obtain evidence from, let's say, the person is sitting in India, or they use the same mechanisms that you have on ordinary crimes. So it makes provisions for extradition. It makes provisions for mutual assistance, mutual legal assistance to have in terms of the criminal law to get someone who's outside of the country are available to you. What the act does is that it makes provisions to criminalize particular cyber offenses, right? Because law that prohibits it, then you can't prosecute the person, right? So it just adds that layer of saying these are actually crimes and these can be prosecuted. But all the other tools that you had before are present, where all of that runs through. So India, so a South African would come to the DPOC or the police as it stands now and say, I have been hacked. And then the police through the DPOC would investigate. They would find that the person used a server in Pakistan, and then they would investigate some more, and they find the person lives in India. Then they would send a request for mutual legal assistance to get the evidence from the server in Pakistan. And then once we have that in that information, find the person who with them. If we do, let's try and get that person extradited. And then they would move it to the NPA the way they would normally do, right? So the argument, and all of that goes to the DPOC. So the argument is that it's about cybercrime, have it as one entity so that we don't have to wait in line. We're still trying to extradite this guy who stole, who's a trafficker. And then we're trying to extradite this crime, time is always of the essence. And there could be multiple countries involved at the same time. We can't have it conflated with all the millions other crimes that are being committed on a day-to-day basis. It's just very slow, and it's just the same as every other method that we're using currently. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, thank you very much. We hope to see
I should hope so. I'm working on it.
But yeah, let me see if there's any other hand before I hand over. Okay, I see one from Bongi.
Hi, Dr. Mabunda. Thank you so much for this. What a pleasure
Hi.
being on the platform.
Thank you.
Yes. My question. So the Capable Guardian is obviously meant to protect, people against cyber crimes. But I'm wondering is what kinds of things against the Capable Guardian? And the reason why I'm posing this is because obviously, if we're involving AI, or even just people, they place you in a compromising position because now you have an entity that has, sensitive information on you. And I think I just want to piggyback off of this where you were referring to passwords and the fact that, for example, in an email, maybe let's say there's a company that is assisting you with your emails, right? That does this, and what they do is that they ask you for your password, so they actually have your password on hand, right? And when you ask them, why do you want my password? Why do you have my password? The answer is threats. And for me, I think the first thing on my mind would be, but doesn't that compromise me even more? Isn't that giving someone else the keys to my house? Isn't that giving you the pin to my, I don't know if maybe you can just talk us through that aspect.
That's an excellent question. And I have had that experience, right? It was just like, if you get hacked as the company, our passwords, right? Whereas if I, someone steals my password, they're only stealing from me. So I didn't understand that logic either. Perhaps it's worth revisiting because Capable Guardian. That's the first part. And that's something that has been discussed in the AI circles, is that we're creating machines that are more intelligent than we are, and they're likely going to become more, also amassing a lot of data. In order for them to learn, they need to get tons and tons and tons of data, right? So we speak about big data. And that's where we would speak about the ethics so there's another paper that I'm writing for a conference later in the year that speaks to the ethics of artificial intelligence. What is it that we are basing this on? And that are in place to make sure that this power is not abused, that this data is not stolen, or this data is not sold by the DPOC, for instance, as a private entity, saying we actually need to Meta. That's a real risk. So that's a brilliant question, and something definitely to think about, and I will do that. So thank you for the question.
Okay, seeing that there aren't any further questions, can I hand over to Nomsa?
Thank you so much, Tulelo. Advocate Mabunda, or shall I say Dr. Mabunda?
Both.
It's fascinating for me. Anyway, we
you.
really want to take this opportunity right now to thank you so much, so much for taking the time to come at least empower us with this insight relating to cyber law or cyber crime and related issues. We most of it is in that field, but we appreciate the fact that you took your time to come and empower us to the extent that you provided us with the basic information as you level. We appreciate it nonetheless. We also are privileged to be probably the first group to receive part of your working on and to be published soon. So we feel very privileged that we are privy to what the world is about to experience and gain from. So we really appreciate that. We don't take it for granted. And we hope that we keep in touch in terms of imparting knowledge and informing us of new in the area of cyber or artificial intelligence. Would really like to keep updated as well and keep up and actually just, you know, eventually go to court with them. But yeah, we really appreciate it. So we just wanted to take this time to really extend our appreciation to you, and we wish you well with your paper. We hope go further, and there will be more papers after this one. And we hope that the interactions we've had with you to a certain extent and also broaden your scope and actually look at other issues that you may want to you know, entertain in your future papers. So yes, we thank you so much. It is so refreshing you and to interact with you at this level. And yeah, we can see your learners are really gaining so much, and we feel jealous.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for those who constantly join us every week. Later this month for another topic. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.